that's what the EU bosses are saying, that we will not be able to step out of line without them having the threat of imposing immediate tariffs. But look, that detail we'll discover in the next couple of days, all right? What I did think was good news was when Barnier said that the British had made no commitments on foreign policy or defence. That sounded like really quite good progress. And if we take the big picture, and don't forget, I've been campaigning for us to leave for 30 years, and this may not be perfect, but it's a very, very big day and a big step forward. So look, overall, of course, I've got concern over areas, but is this progress? Are we far better off than we were 5 years ago? Absolutely. In a couple of days, having not read it. So I think what Parliament should do is have a vote in principle, and then in the new year, go through it in detail. In principle, given where we are right now, given that this has been the most divisive issue in British politics for 3 decades, if this brings some peace and some stability, then yes, in principle, I would. I think we actually have a much closer cultural affinity with many parts of the English-speaking world than we do with continental Europe. And that's one of the reasons, of course, in the end, that we voted for Brexit. Boris does his PC bit, plays up the pro-European side of things. He, of course, himself, until the referendum came along, had always been a supporter of the European project. But look, the truth of it is, whatever he said there, and I'd also question what he said about the fact we've got a Canada-style deal. We haven't. You have to take what Boris says with a pinch of salt. I think the truth of it is that the European Union itself is divided from north to south by a currency that doesn't work for the south at all, divided east to west culturally, and we're seeing the EU budget being vetoed and countries like Poland and Hungary very unhappy. And I think in the broader picture, Brexit is the beginning of the end of the European Union. I'm pro-European. I'm pro-Europe of sovereign states trading and being friends, not being run from Brussels. I spent 20 years over there, and I saw the undemocratic nature of the way this project is run, the fact that it benefits big multinational businesses and damages all the small men and women trying to do their best. And as history teaches us, when Europe is happy and settled, it makes our lives easier too. And all I can see is conflict building up north, south, east and west within a European Union that frankly just wants to build this modern day empire because, Boris Johnson declares himself to be a Sinophile. The only Western world leader really standing up to China was Donald Trump. And if indeed Joe Biden comes into the White House, well, the Chinese Communist Party are getting a bit of a free pass. Seen the detail on what this arbitration committee is. I guess they're using that phrase because we didn't want to hear that the ECJ, was the final arbiter. There are 2 big problems that I have with this. I want to see the detail. The first, you're quite right. If we're going to stay aligned to EU rules and dare not step out of line because they have the sword of Damocles hanging over us that if we become too competitive, they'll slap tariffs on. Well, that will be a huge disappointment. And on fisheries, to say to the British industry, it'll be 10 years after the country voted Brexit before we're even catching 2/3 of the fish in our waters isn't a good deal. For example, next year, can British boats in Devon and Cornwall land bluefin tuna? Yes or no? I don't know the answers to that. I'm hoping we'll get some detail over the course of the next few days. But the fishing industry, the coastal communities today are disappointed. Northern Ireland today is, of course, extremely disappointed. Those of us that want Britain to become competitive and global are concerned over what those level playing field provisions mean. And I share all of those concerns. But the point I'm making is that on the 31st of January this year and the 1st of January 2021, we've made the big historic break. The Brexit wars are over and there's no going back. And I will at least celebrate that this evening. You can get 2 experts on a panel. One will tell you we'll be poorer. One will tell you we could be a lot richer. And they both could be wrong. What is beyond doubt is that with Brexit, we get back something that we used to think was rather valuable. And it's called democracy. And it means that you can actually vote for people that make your laws and then vote for people who want to get rid of them. And the biggest problem with the European Union was any single piece of EU law that came into British law, there was nothing the electors could do in a general election or a Parliament could do, even if all 650 of them voted against it. We'd literally given away the ability to govern ourselves. And Brexit makes us a free country. It makes us a democratic country. It doesn't, by the way, mean we'll get everything right, but it does at least mean we'll make our own successes and our own failures in the future. I mean, the whole idea of the European single market, the whole idea of a level playing field is anti-competitive and big state in its very nature. And it makes it much more difficult for small and medium-sized competitors to break into industries that are run by a handful of big companies. So for me, the economic vision of Brexit, well, number one, it was global because, let's face it, the Eurozone is only 15% of the world's GDP and it goes down 1% every year. So the future for trade is going to be outside Europe. But I want us to be on tax, on regulation, employment legislation, environmental law. I think we can legislate smarter and better and make this country far more competitive, than Germany or France and elsewhere. And if we get that right, then, the thought of Singapore is that we'd get money, hundreds of billions flooding into Britain from all over the world. And so the biggest concern economically is just how closely tied are we going to be to those European rules, and what's the arbitration process going to be? And if we have signed up to something that stops us from having the option of being Singapore, that will be a great shame.